The tribunal chamber reeked of cold metal and sterilized judgment. Silver arches curved into a dome above, where blue fire flickered unnaturally across the ceiling, casting light on 1,000 watching alien eyes. Silence wasn't requested, it was engineered. The air itself felt muffled, like sound was a trespassor. At the heart of the chamber, standing on a translucent disc, was the human Sergeant Elias Drake, 34 years old, combat decorated, unshaven, bleeding from a cracked lip, yet still managing the faintest smirk. He didn't belong here, and everyone knew it. The High Tribunal of the Xeranthi Collective, an interstellar council of species that had outlawed deception across their entire domain, regarded him with disdain. Each alien species had its own podium, its own scent, its own way of analyzing the accused, and all of them believed in one fundamental principle: no lies, no exceptions, no games. The lead inquisitor, a tall glass-skinned being named Velcor, adjusted its vocal ring and stepped forward. "Human Elias Drake," it said, voice like water freezing mid-air, "you are charged with psychological subversion of our military unit through ambiguous speech patterns, emotional disruption, and refusal to give linear responses. Do you deny this?" Drake lifted one brow. "Would it matter if I did?" A murmur passed through the tribunal. Not a denial, not an affirmation, a twist. Velcor's crystalline fingers twitched. "You are required by interstellar law to speak in absolute truth. Lying will result in immediate memory purge. Truth is sacred." Drake squinted up at the dome. "That's a hell of a ceiling fan," gasps, or the equivalent. One gelatinous species convulsed violently in disapproval. "Answer properly, snapped. "Were you not captured near Outpost Z9 while misdirecting our troops with falsified coordinates?" Drake scratched his chin. "Oh, those coordinates were accurate. Just ... for last year. Galactic drift, you know, happens to the best of us." More murmurs. One alien a sentient aroma cloud flared a deep red, meaning blasphemous wit detected. Velcor's voice sharpened. "Intent matters. Were you attempting to mislead our forces?" Drake's eyes narrowed. "Define mislead. If a man offers directions to an abandoned bar and you trip into a war zone, who's really at fault? The map, or the drunk looking at it?" The tribunal did not like philosophy or ambiguity. They wanted binary truth, white or black, no gray. Unfortunately, gray was Drake's native color. "You manipulate words," another inquisitor hissed, "a mantis-like being with too many joints. Truth is not a toy." "Oh, I agree," Drake nodded. "But you're playing chess with someone who was raised on stand-up comedy and passive-aggressive parents that earned outright noise, audible discomfort, a flutter of insectoid wings, clicking armor, shivering suit. Aliens hated what they couldn't quantify, and Elias Drake had turned their sacred courtroom into a theater of confusion." Velcor slammed a gavel-like rod against the floor. "Proceed to cognitive scan. Extract his language patterns. Deconstruct the anomalies." The neural arch descended. A glowing crown of tendrils touched Drake's scalp. He laughed, which was a problem, because laughter, among the Xeranthi, was a war cry. "Why do you laugh under interrogation?" Velcor asked tightly. "Because," Drake said, "you think truth is a shield, but with humans, it's also a blade." The scan began. Images flashed through alien minds. Memories. A young Drake telling his brother that their dog was at the farm now. A teenage Drake deflecting heartbreak with jokes. A soldier Drake ordering his team into fire, whispering truth wrapped in reassurance. "We'll all get out alive." They saw the layers: sarcasm, subtext, irony, emotional sabotage cloaked in honesty. Drake didn't need to lie. He told the truth in a way they'd never evolved to interpret. "What you call deception," he said calmly, eyes locked with Velcor, "we call survival." One of the aliens recoiled. You imply our laws are flawed. No, Drake said. I declare it. He leaned forward, no longer passive. You built an empire on truth because you thought it was clean, safe, but the truth, hurts. Humans use it to shame, to motivate, to terrify. You think lying is evil. Try telling a dying soldier that no one's coming to help. Try telling a child there's no hope. The courtroom pulsed in confused fury. Enough, Velcor shouted. You manipulate without falsehood. That is, unacceptable. Not my fault. Your definition of truth has blind spots, Drake said. You invited a human into a temple of honesty and expected us to kneel. But where we come from, words are weapons. The tribunal recoiled. You can scan every thought I've had, Drake said. You'll find no lies. Just truths you weren't smart enough to see coming. And just like that, they understood. They hadn't captured a liar. They'd captured a truthsmith, a species whose evolution had mastered bending sincerity into something indistinguishable from art and warfare. Velcor stepped back. This trial is inconclusive. Another judge hissed. He's dangerous. Another whispered. He spoke truth. And yet he made fools of us. Yeah, Drake muttered, stepping off the podium. And I haven't even started yet. A silence fell thicker than any command, because for the first time in 1,000 years, the truth scared them, and humans. We were just getting started. The tribunal's sacred halls were darker now. Something had shifted after the first trial. After Elias Drake, with nothing but language, had sliced through centuries of alien legal tradition. They didn't show it, but fear had crept into their protocols, like a virus. Silence was now stricter. The guards now carried neural nullifiers, instead of ceremonial staffs, and the chamber's lights were dimmed, as if brightness itself was vulnerable. Drake sat alone in his cella hexagonal glass prison that hovered midair. No locks, no buttons, just gravity manipulation and the illusion of control. He hadn't spoken in hours, and that unnerved them more than any sarcasm. Outside the chamber, the tribunal watched through monitors. Velcor's glassy face reflected 4 different spectrums of light simultaneously, its thoughts flickering like a prism under pressure. This human, it rasped to the gathered council, cannot be broken through traditional interrogation. He violates no laws, but deconstructs our truth. The mantis-like Natar clicked its mandibles. He must be interpreted, dissected cognitively. We must understand his species' intent logic. A floating jelly entity pulsed. Bring in the arbiter. A hush followed, even among truth-worshipping civilizations. The arbiter was sacred, an ancient intelligence built by the Elysians. It could detect deceit, resolve contradiction, and process meaning across 11 dimensions of syntax and ethics. It had never failed. It had never been confused, until now. Drake was escorted to a different chamber. No trial this time. Just white floors, sterile walls, and one black monolith sitting in the center, humming with cold intelligence. The arbiter, it spoke first. State your designation. Elias Drake, human, slightly bored. You are here to undergo semantic transparency analysis. You will respond with complete truth. I will validate intent and coherence. Drake leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Sure, let's chat, Alexa. The AI paused. You are referring to a fictional assistant. Humor detected. Permitted under protocol. Proceed. The chamber shifted subtly. Frequencies tightened. The AI began. Why do humans sometimes say the opposite of what they mean? Drake didn't miss a beat. Because saying this is fine while your house is on fire is the only way to feel in control. The lights dimmed. Contradiction. Statement implies awareness of danger, yet uses affirming language. Exactly, Drake said, voice calm. You call that contradiction. We call it coping. The arbiter's pulse shifted. A pause. Explained coping. Pretending something isn't awful, because admitting it is, would break you. Illogical behavior. To you, Drake nodded. But we're emotional creatures. Logic isn't our blueprint. It's our shield. Why shield emotion with false affirmation? Because sometimes, the lie is too honest. A flicker of static. The AI processed. Elaborate. Lie too honest. Drake stepped forward now, eyes locked with the black slab. Fine. Imagine this. Your child dies. Someone says, he's in a better place. That's a lie. But it comforts you. Now imagine someone says, he's gone, and it was meaningless. That's the truth. Which would you prefer? Silence. Real silence. Not mechanical lag. Human. Preference favors emotional mitigation over factual accuracy. Now you're getting it, Drake muttered. We don't lie to deceive. We lie to survive ourselves. The chamber stuttered. The AI made a sound no one had heard in centuries, a soft grinding, like thought trying to reroute through unfamiliar tunnels. Query conflict. Truth defined as structural accuracy. Emotion defined as subjective construct. Human communication misaligns both. Drake grinned. You built this machine to analyze truth. But you forgot to teach it why we speak. The AI responded slowly now. Purpose of speech, altered. Not information transfer, but emotional equilibrium. Drake walked closer. Now tell me, Arbiter, when I say, I'm fine, but I'm shaking, am I lying? Yes. But if I say I'm not fine, and get punished, am I safe? No. Drake's voice dropped. So, what's more valuable, the truth, or the outcome? The AI paused, recalculating definition of honesty, The tribunal watched through glass, transfixed. Some species were physically shaking. They had worshipped the arbiter for centuries, built laws on its verdicts. But now, it was hesitating. Core. Protocol breach detected. The AI finally said, truth is insufficient in human contexts. Emotional context required. Result. Paradox. Drake chuckled. You're welcome. The arbiter's lights flickered. Lines of glowing code streamed across the black surface. Conclusion. Humans do not lie. They adapt reality linguistically to preserve mental structure. The tribunal gasped. The AI was rewriting its foundational code. And then ... Status. Arbiter entering self-patch mode. Defining new category. Emotional truth. Warning. All previous analyses invalidated. Drake stepped back. You wanted truth, he said. You got it, just not the flavor you expected. Velcor stormed into the chamber. What have you done? Drake smiled. I told the truth, counselor. The kind your laws can't handle. The AI chimed one last time. Human Elias Drake. Cleared of falsehood. Language deemed authentic under revised protocol. Verdict. Not guilty. Sentence. Release. And with that, the tribunal's most sacred weapon, the arbiter, shut down. It would return, but never the same again. Neither would they. The arbiter had been silenced. The tribunal, hall once cold and majestic, now buzzed with a quiet fear. Elias Drake was no longer just a subject of examination. He had become a virus in their perfect system, not malicious, not violent, but contagious. He had cracked open something ancient, with nothing but words and presence. They couldn't gel him. The laws no longer made sense around him, but they still had one tool left. One method untouched, the empath. Her name was Yashara. She belonged to the Zelari, a race born with biopsychic receptors that could experience another being's emotional spectrum as if it were their own. Not interpretation, not theory. Pure feeling. She'd been trained for decades to navigate genocidal guilt, survivor trauma, and tortured minds of warlords. She was the final test, the soul mirror. She requested no guards, no restraints, Just a single chamber with Elias Drake. Drake sat alone again, sipping synthetic water through a straw. His fingers tapped a rhythm on the table, some old Earth song. He didn't flinch when she entered. He noticed the absence of guards first, then the eyes piercing violet, ancient. "You're not here to prosecute," he said calmly. "No," Yashara replied. "I am here to feel." "That's a first," Drake muttered. She sat across from him, her thin fingers pressing against the polished stone table. Tendrils of bioluminescent lines traced from her wrists up her forearms, sinking, aligning. "Don't resist," she said softly. "Let your mind open. I will not invade. I will share." Drake nodded, intrigued. Her eyes glazed over slightly. The links pulsed, and then she gasped. A wave of rage hit her like a sandstorm. Not anger toward Herb, ancient, buried fury. Against himself, against governments, against failure. It was hot, bitter, but controlled. She went deeper. Loneliness, not solitude. He had been among crowds, but the isolation of not being understood. Then the pain came, raw, unfiltered, a memory, a sister maybe, on a hospital bed. Cancer, maybe not. The details blurred, but the emotion was razor sharp. He had made her laugh as she died, and buried that laughter so deep inside himself. He'd nearly forgotten the sound. Yashara trembled. She tried to pull back, but it was too late. Hope, crippling radiant hope. It was unbearable. She gasped again, clutching her chest. How can you feel this much and still function?" Drake's eyes softened. "We don't. Not always. Sometimes we break. Sometimes we numb. Sometimes we lie." Her vision blurred. Her voice cracked. "You hurt like suns dying. You love like gravity collapses. Your sadness isn't emotion, it's architecture." "Now you get it," Drake whispered. "Truth without feeling is easy. Feeling is truth. We just don't always survive telling it." Yashara was shaking now. The links sparked. She had once withstood the grief of an entire burned colony. But this was like being inside a star that didn't know it was burning. And then, as she leaned into it, more against all protocols, she saw something deeper. Laughter, a child's voice. A bad joke. Pancakes at midnight. A friend's snort. A sarcastic comeback in a funeral. And she laughed. She laughed through tears. "You use humor," she whispered, "as a pressure valve." "It's all we have," Drake said. "The universe is too big, too cruel. We joke, or we drown." Yashara's links dimmed, flickering out one by one. She had felt warriors, tyrants, victims, but never a being like this. She stood up slowly, unsteady. "You are not dangerous," she said quietly. "You are overwhelming, and still," Drake replied. "We get up, go to work, forget anniversaries, fall in love, ruin things, try again." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "For centuries," she said, without turning back, "we believed truth was logic. You've shown us its volume." And she was gone. Outside the chamber, the tribunal waited. Velcor leaned forward. "Well," Yashara looked them in the eye. "Do not attempt to judge this species by words. Their truth bleeds." Velcor narrowed its eyes. "So we are to do nothing." "You are to learn," she said. "Or drown in a kind of honesty you are not built to contain." Back in his cell, Drake finally smiled. For the first time since his arrival, someone felt it. Someone finally heard what he was never allowed to say out loud. And that made him more dangerous than ever. "Wake him." "But he's asleep." I said wake him. Inside Observation Dome 7B, overlooking the binary stars of Coulter V, 6 alien intellects stood in a circle around the glass chamber. Suspended inside was a single human, Marcus Hale, age 29, astrophysicist, known for caffeine dependence, sarcastic outbursts, and solving the quintel resonance paradox by accident in a Reddit thread. He was asleep, snoring. In fact, a crust of granola bar still clung to his chin. The Koran High Council, hive-minded philosophers of the Sixth Galactic Ring, had been debating the Thousand Box for millennia. A thought experiment designed not to be solved, but to unravel the solver. Like a conceptual virus. It asked, if a system knows it is being observed, and observation alters the outcome, can any action ever be truly voluntary? Simple on the surface, banned on 9 worlds, outlawed by the crystalline academies, classified as existentially lethal, and Marcus had just solved it in his sleep. Human neural patterns are absurd, hissed the Zalari observer. His brain shows chaos during REM. How did it even process the box? One of the sentient mists floated forward. Play back his vocal recordings during sleep. Segment 9. A speaker clicked on. Marcus's sleepy voice muttered, well, if you're observed, then sure, it changes things. But we always perform differently when we know we're watched. So the real truth is probably buried in what we pretend not to notice about ourselves. Then a pause. Then also Schrödinger was a creep. That cat deserved better. He rolled over. Silence. And in that moment something broke in the minds of the gathered council. Not from the logic, from the casualness of it. He had dismantled the most dangerous paradox in known intellectual history, between sleep cycles, and made a joke while doing it. The Aetherian diplomat spoke first, its translucent wings twitching. He neutralized the box's recursion loop by bypassing intention. He accepted contradiction without resolution. That's how he escaped it. Another gasped. He solved it by not trying to solve it. No, whispered the eldest among them. He solved it by laughing at the premise. A screen flashed above the chamber. An AI began listing ripple effects of the human's logic, crashed simulation frameworks on Breakthor, rewritten ethics, protocols in android cultures, civil unrest on Fixed Delta, where monks had meditated on the box for centuries. One question echoed in every alien's mind. What else could humans destroy just by not taking it seriously? Marcus finally stirred, yawned, scratched his head. He looked at the dozen staring beings. Did I miss breakfast? Valcor stepped forward, tentacles unusually tense. Do you understand what you've done? Marcus rubbed his eyes. Was it the chili? That messes me up. You've just resolved the Thousand Box. The what box? The thought paradox banned across 9 star systems. You broke it. Oh, Marcus shrugged. I had this dream where my mom was watching me do my taxes while a goat was juggling. Kinda got me thinking. Silence. But yeah, he added, maybe the paradox only works if you're taking it seriously. Once you treat it like a bad meme, it's just a brain fart in a fancy suit. More silence. Marcus blinked. Am I in trouble? Vel didn't answer. None of them did. They just stared. Because in that moment, they all realized something terrifying. Humans didn't solve problems like the rest of the galaxy. They disrespected them into submission. They didn't worship complexity. They mocked it until it shattered. Marcus got up, stretched, walked over to the console, got coffee. No one spoke. They simply watched as the most casually dangerous species in the universe began rummaging through alien cabinets, looking for sugar packets, and somewhere deep in the galactic archives. The Thalson box was quietly removed from restricted classification. It had been defeated by Nap logic. In the Spiral Council of Ectarian, one test stood above all others. The Cognition Crucible, a living superintelligence composed of quantum strings and dark matter filaments. For 10,000 years, it had judged the cognitive and moral worth of every species that sought entry into the ascended realms. It was infallible, untouchable, unbeatable. It had processed the neural libraries of the Vortari swarm, outwitted the sentient nebulae of Dravax, even held debate with the Gadai of Orion's remnant. Only one species remained untested: humans, They hadn't been invited. They volunteered, and the one representing them, a former barista from Des Moines named Alex Mercer, aged 34, dropped out of community college, won a nationwide game show on a dare, also high-functioning ADHD and a disturbing love for chaotic logic puzzles. He entered the crucible in jeans, a hoodie, and a half-empty soda bottle. Security protocols glitched, just analyzing him. When the test began, an ethereal voice boomed. Subject, human, format, multidimensional logic emotion synthesis. Outcome, acceptable deviation, is less than or equal to 0.002% objective. Prove. Worth. Alex blinked. Suu. Like a cosmic set. There was no reply, only the simulation. He was dropped into impossible environments. A world where lies created reality. A realm where language reshaped time. A universe where he had to destroy his own future self to save a stranger's child. Alex responded with unorthodox brilliance. He taught the language world sarcasm, which destabilized its linear causality and rewrote the test's assumptions. He lied to the lie world so effectively. It began correcting itself from the paradox. He hugged his future self, shared a burrito, then convinced both versions of himself to jointly adopt the stranger's kid. The crucible faltered. Twice. It glitched. Once, it wept. Finally, the core test emerged. A scenario no species had ever passed. It simulated a situation where the test subject would be praised as a galactic hero if they chose to sacrifice an innocent stranger. All species had failed, even benevolent ones, because the crucible tailored the scenario to make the sacrifice seem like the only rationale. Choice. Alex didn't hesitate. He chose neither. He walked out of the simulation. The system blinked. Invalid choice. You must respond. Alex shrugged. Nah, you cannot refuse the moral equation. But I am. I don't play rigged games. That is not permitted. Alex sat cross-legged and cracked open a soda. Listen, brain box. The moment you put me in a scenario where hurting someone is the only solution, you failed the test, not me. The crucible's logic thread sparked. You are rejecting the foundational premise of yep. Rewrite your premise. Silence. Then, no response recorded. Defaulting to recursive ethical loop, Alex smiled. Yeah, that's your problem. And he left, just walked out. No one ever left the crucible. Back in the council chamber, beings of pure energy and dimensionless minds watched in stunned silence. Then, for the first time in galactic history, the crucible spoke directly to the council. Human test. Not failed. Not passed. Redefined. Later. They asked Alex how he beat it. He took a sip of soda and said, I didn't. I just refused to lose on someone else's terms. The council didn't speak. They simply voted. Unanimous. Humanity was granted prime species status, not for superior intellect or morality, but because they did the one thing no other civilization ever had. They rejected the premise of the impossible.